just connecting.
This could be a journey.
No, okay. So, oh, Twitter is live.
Were you having Wi-Fi problems here?
Yes. Okay.
Oh, we're apparently full time.
Okay. Somebody said something.
Okay, I think we're live. I'm gonna end. I don't know.
No.
Pull up your phone, see if we're still live. From Energizer Park, obviously, technical issues continue to be worked through as we're live at Energizer Park. Post game from St. Louis City's 3-3 thrilling draw.
Good.
Are we still live?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess we're live. And thanks for joining us, everyone. Post game, if you're interested in getting involved in the chat, definitely jump in with thoughts, comments, and feedback on this one. It's going to be a fun show. Here with Santiago Beltran. Santi, how are you making from the game?
Hi guys, no, great game to call. Claus with the hat trick. So yeah, the team didn't get the 3 points, but it was really exciting to call.
All right, well, let's get going with this pod because it is late on a Saturday. And if you're joining us here, fantastic, thank you. But we want to get you back to your evening. So let's go through this one like we usually do. It's not quite a wind down where I'm opening a drink purely water. All right. Welcome everyone to Flyover Footy. My name is Matt Baker, joined as always by my friend in soccer, Santiago Beltran, for another edition of Fallout. And this time we've got goals to look at. A 3-3 draw, thrilling ending to a match here against the LA Galaxy. Match week 18 for St. Louis City. And we didn't pull out the win, but we didn't lose all 3 points. And this was a game where it was just nonstop back and forth. Both teams had a lot of shots. Both teams had a lot of chances. So Santi, you were on the call. We're coming live to you post-game from Energizer Park. What did you make of this game? First reactions.
No, from the beginning, back and forth, and the teams had options. Too bad City couldn't get the 3 points. This was one of the games that, in my opinion, I thought was going to be one of those games where the team was going to get his second consecutive win at home and then continue building from that next game when it faces Orlando after the break. Unfortunately, there were a few mistakes made on the second half, and LAXC was able to come back after the 2-1 and then score the third goal that for a minute it looked like that was going to be the end of the match.
Well, let's start off with this one like we usually do. Go back to the beginning. We're going to start with our starting 11. Roman Berkey, Jay Reed, Timo Baumgartel, Kyle Hebert, and Thomas Totland were the defenders. Alfredo Morales and Akil Watts were the central midfielders, with Celio Pompeu, Marcel Hartl, Simon Betcher, and Klaus as the attacking midfielders and our forward. It was the same 11 from last week, except for Kyle Hebert in for the injured Henry Kessler. It was Jay Reed's third straight start for David Critchley. This was notable, obviously, because Reed hadn't been a consistent starter at all. I have a question in just a moment about his spot on the team, but also because Jay Reed was in the game, no Giannis Horn. I think Giannis Horn has actually appeared in a game, and the confirmation that we heard that St. Louis City did not pick up Giannis Horn's option. So that's absolutely notable. And the last notable I had is that we didn't use any short-term loans. We didn't call anybody up. We didn't announce Mekhi Joyner, Brendan McSorley. We had the depth necessary to have the city players play and not need any extra help. So looking at mostly that left back spot, does this mean that Giannis Horn's time with St. Louis City has come to an end? And does this also mean that Jay Reed, and we'll talk about Jay Reed's performance in this game, does that mean that he's cemented his spot as our starting left back?
I think so, at least for now. And the Horn thing could be one of those things like, yeah, you are at the end of your loan, and maybe player and team talk about it. And yeah, he's available from the bench and can be used if needed. But I think for now, that's Jaden Reed's job. What worries me a little bit is after June 30th, when Horn leaves, obviously you need somebody there to back Jaden Reed. But for now, Jaden Reed looks like he's back 100% fitness after being injured at the beginning of the season. And he has gone, if you count the City 2 game that he played, he has had four 90 minutes performances in the last few weeks.
That's a fantastic jump for Jay Reed. And I talked to him this past week, so you know that we're big Jay Reed fans here. Excited to see him get more minutes. Excited to see him in everything that he brings to this team: the physicality, the two-way play, being able to defend in space, the unfortunate reaction in this game notwithstanding, that was part of one of those mistakes that David Critchley mentioned in one of the last goals. So let's kind of talk about things we like, things we didn't like before jumping into the goals and all that stuff. In general, I had a few positives that I took away from this match, obviously for St. Louis, and they weren't directly related to the goals, but I thought that the way that St. Louis was using the field was pretty impressive, using both sides of the field. They didn't just use the long ball. They were using short, medium passes, being a little bit more intentional, being very, very much more patient. And Saleo talked about this. That's kind of being better on the ball will lead to more patience. And that's when we're seeing these builds that show showing a little more willingness to play the ball between your central mids and your back line, as opposed to just sending it long and hoping the strikers can do some work. So I like that. I liked not forcing a lot of crosses into the box. Up until I would say the second half, end of the second half, it didn't seem like we were having that many crosses sent in the box. We were trying to be more intentional in our passing in the final third. It changed a little bit when Cedric Toysher came on, and he had a few crosses in, and they seemed like they were just trying to get the ball into the box quickly and create things that way at the end of the game when they were chasing a goal or even before that. So I liked in large portions of this game, they weren't trying to send crosses when there weren't advantages in the box. They were actually intentionally making sure that there were quantities of players and they were having advantages before they would send the ball in. Otherwise, they would try to draw defenders out with more passing. That's not something that we've seen with St. Louis recently, or it's not something we've seen with St. Louis historically this season, but it is something we've seen recently. And that's kind of an exciting change that David Critchley's brought amongst all the other exciting changes. Timo Baumgartel as a ball handling center back. I'm a huge fan of Timo Baumgartel at center back. I like the vision. I like the skill with the ball at his feet. With Henry Kessler out right now, Timo Baumgartel is the answer for how our center backs are able to progress the ball meaningfully. And there were a lot of issues that we had with the back line as far as passing goes, especially in the second half. But I think in general, Timo gives us this extra dimension that we need to, whether you're talking three center backs or two in Critchley's system. Timo Baumgartel is kind of the player who's been able to direct the ball intentionally between lines, just a couple, whether you're moving up to the center mids or the fullbacks. And I think he's a valuable reason that we're able to do that.
Yeah, he's very confident. He's very confident. I had a chance to talk to him this week, and yeah, he's confident in his game. Obviously, at the beginning of the season, he wasn't featured, and I had a chance to talk to him this week. I said, yeah, it was a way to City 2, but as you said, he's the answer when Henry Kessler is out and doing a good job. The other thing he mentioned is starting with different center backs due to all the injuries. And no, it's people that I have been able to get a relationship with. So any of the guys that come and play with me, I have no issues with that.
And then Claus. I mean, we're going to talk about the goals, but we have to talk about Claus for a second. What do you say about Claus in this, other than it was the match we've been dreaming for? I mean, since he was signed, it's not just this was Claus as scoring goals for St. Louis, but the first hat trick in St. Louis City SC history, and it's Claus. Of all people who deserve this accolade or deserve this recognition, you've got to point back to the guy who's been here from the beginning, been here not just as one of the day one players, but as the day one designated player. Like, he was signed to be our goal scoring number 9, and he delivered in this game in spades. And now he has 4 goals in 3 games under David Critchley. So you're talking about a player who is the perfect example of everything all these other players have talked about regarding David Critchley and how he has impacted the team in the mental aspect of the game, giving them confidence, allowing them to play more free. And Claus now having 4 goals in 3 matches, a hat trick tonight. What more can you say about Claus when it comes to how he's thriving under David Critchley?
Well, there is not a lot to say. It's just his confidence is back. And David Critchley mentioned it on Tuesday when there was media availability, and he was asked about the finishing problem that the team had in Portland. And he quickly referenced, well, after talking to you guys, I have a meeting with Klaus. We're going to review some of the stuff that happened during the game. And yeah, I have some things to tell him about his positioning. And well, he comes 5 days later, 4 days later, and scores 3 goals. And the one thing that I noticed today was that his presence in the box. He compared to our games, to me, it looked like he was moving more inside the box and trying to find spaces and being patient. And yeah, his style of play is also to protect the ball and to go outside of the box. But I think he did that less today, and he was more focused on going in the box and trusting his teammates to find him. And the 3 he has scored. So what a change from the Portland game to today.
And that's not to say there were all sunshine and rainbows for this game. We've got more positive things to say. Roman Berkey among them, Marcel Hartl, Salio, Simon Betcher, etc. But this team again conceded after going up, not just once, but twice. By my count, just to get this stat out of the way, St. Louis City has held a lead 3 times in the past 2 games, and they've only held that lead for 15 total minutes.
Oh my God.
Between the Portland Timbers conceding after 5 minutes, and in this match, I think if I recall, it was 6 and 4.
Yeah, it was very quickly.
And it did happen very quickly, just like it happened in Portland.
Yeah, 4 minutes, and then
6 in the first half, 4 in the second.
Yeah,
so
4
what
in the second?
What do you and I don't know what else there is to really talk about this other than what the players have been saying. We don't really need to guess on what's going on here, because the players have told us the same things now for multiple games. In this game, after this match, Marcel Hartl and Salio both told us post game that the problem is that they're backing off. Now, Marcel Hartl had a really interesting quote post game when he talked about they have to get out of this mentality of dropping back into a low block, almost as if it has been trained and ingrained into them so heavily over the first 15 games of the season that by default you drop back into a low block. If you're against the ball, you drop back. Or if you happen to go up, you absolutely drop back, because you go up, you want to preserve any kind of lead you get, as opposed to what David Critchley is trying to get the team to do, which is stay aggressive, stay on the front foot, not lose that pressing focus, and search for a second goal. Don't be happy with a 1-goal lead, but seek a second. And what we're seeing isn't that. Now, I guess the silver lining here is the team now has an 11-day break. Their next match, I believe, against Orlando isn't for another week and a half. They play midweek against Orlando, not this coming week, but the next. And then they play the Houston Dynamo 2 weeks from now. And there's time to reset. There's time to just take a break, take a breather. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But when it comes to trying to lose what they've done and what was ingrained in them the first 15 games, and have more time to have David Critchley's way of thinking and his system and his instructions sink in, this could be kind of, serendipitous timing when it comes to that, because it seems like the players know what they need to do.
Yeah, and Klaus mentioned it during his press conference. He said, like, yeah, it's a new system. We need time. We need more repetitions. So yeah, obviously the team is gonna get a few days off, but it's, when they are back, it's gonna have more time to continue implementing the system and to do what both Celio and Hartel said on the press conference. After you score the first, don't drop back and start looking for the second. Obviously, you still have to be careful. Do not give spaces. But if you draw back, you give the ball to your opponent, and you could see that on LA's first goal. When we talk about it, we can review that you could see the team had dropped back. But yeah, those are things that can be corrected. The other things that can be corrected is what happened on the other two Galaxies goals. The team losing the ball when trying to play off the back. But yeah, it's a new system. Um, a lot of work to do. My only concern is that now game 18 and the team will need to make up a lot of ground if it wants to make it to the playoffs.
Well, before we talk about the bad, because I'm sure that'll come after, as we talking about this, let's get into the goals. Let's jump right into it. After the hydration break, then it opened up. And I mentioned the hydration break specifically because Critchley talked to us post game. Klaus even said it himself that David Critchley said to Klaus, keep doing what you're doing. Your time is going to come. That continued reinforcement, that continued confidence boost for Klaus. And it came just 5 minutes after. 5 minutes after the hydration break started, at 35 minutes, it was a ball that was kind of cleared up into the St. Louis area, recovered by St. Louis, and worked between, I think I counted 3 players, where Marcel Hartl played Klaus into goal. And it was a Klaus holdup, but it was also Marcel Hartl being in that number 10 position, being central and having the freedom to know what to do with the ball. And he's so good with the ball at his feet. Marcel Hartl is one of the most quality players with the ball at his feet. I'm not talking speed down the line, being able to hold it up and play 1v1. I'm just talking intelligent play, knowing where to put the ball and how to put the ball, but also having the skill to put the ball there where he needs it to. And in that bang bang play where there was a quick transition in the final third after St. Louis had it up there, it was Hartl to Klaus to finish this one.
Yeah, and Celio was also involved. He recovered the rebound from Galaxy and then played it with Klaus and Hartel. Just held the ball enough for Klaus to run behind him. And then Klaus had a wide open shot and was patient and then put in between the legs of LA Galaxy's goalie. But yeah, it was a great goal, great play. And everything looked great right after that. The game had started with a lot of chances. You were talking about Hartel's passing. He had a one earlier in the game to Betcher. It was a great pass, and the goalie ended up making a save. But yeah, I really like what Hartel, the way Hartel was passing, and I think the team is starting to click with the new system. Mostly, as Klaus said, you need repetitions, but you could see the work that the team has been doing the last couple of weeks.
And the goal celebration, got to mention that really quick because it was asked post game. Klaus said that the sipping goal celebration was definitely come up with by Klaus and Betcher at a coffee shop. They love to go to coffee shops together. And that's where that goal celebration was born out of. And Hartl said he just went along with it. He saw Klaus and Betcher doing it, so he sat down and did it right alongside him, which is just fun. What wasn't fun was the fact that we conceded 6 minutes later. And this is the trend. This is the second time at this point where we had conceded a goal just shortly after we scored one. And it was, what do you attribute to this goal? Because it seemed like it was the back line being spread too thin, too wide, and not having proper spacing covered, because you're allowing a really class player like Marco Royce to be stretching down to the touchline and sending it back to Gabriel Peck for his first goal.
Yeah. And the team, like, that's what we were talking. The team dropped back, and Galaxy had a good play. Yamane, the right back, put a ball to the top of the box, and Marco Royce, you can see his class there. He just let it pass, and then the ball went to Nascimento, the U22 player from LA Galaxy, and he passed it back to Marco Royce, who continued following the play, and then he passed it back to Nascimento, but he slipped. The good thing is that Gabriel Peck was right there, and he had a wide open net and ended up scoring the equalizer.
And it probably says something, and we're going to repeat these names a few times. Nascimento the U22 signee, on Royce, Gabriel Peck. These are 3 superstars by LA. And I talked last week with Edgar that they're not just getting healthier, but they're getting their key players in form. Nascimento as striker in this game, for instance, with Miguel Berry out, perfect opportunity. Peck is finishing like he did tonight, turning things around to at least a small extent. So this was still a dangerous Galaxy team with a lot of their goal scorers and a lot of their chance creators being in good form. Now, for better or worse, that's how the half ended. We had a 1-1 draw. Some notes I made in the first half are I saw some good builds down the wings, good quality hold-up play, mostly on the right side for St. Louis. St. Louis was willing to be patient in the final third. It started early in this game. I mentioned it as a prevailing thing, but they were patient, looking for open passes versus forcing anything. And you had good high turnovers still early on. Marcel Hartl, Celio Pompeu, the attackers were in good form in their press. The first 10 minutes was really quality because we didn't talk about all the missed chances. You had Simon Betcher with a couple really good opportunities. Twice. Marcel Hartl with the potentially pass of the game. If you talk about obviously the goal scoring, but that set the tone early. Marcel Hartl's pass early to Simon Betcher after turning the ball over. So after that first 10 minutes, it was fairly even, I think, in the first half for a huge stretch of the game up until the hydration. And then after the hydration, it was back and forth in goals. So you can say that these two teams are pretty evenly matched in the first half once St. Louis couldn't find the scoreboard early on in the first 10 minutes or so. The stats kind of back up the fact that they were even in the first half. 3 shots on target out of 4 total shots by City, 3 shots on target out of 6 total shots by the Galaxy. Of St. Louis's first 10 minutes, they had a decently poor XG, I would say. Simon, in the first 10 minutes, they had a .99 XG, no goals scored. A lot of that was Simon Betcher.
Yeah.
So they had just about 0.6 XG total the rest of the half. Galaxy had 0.89, so they were pretty similar there. Both teams were tied at 13 passes in the opposition box. So things were fairly even-keeled, and then St. Louis makes their halftime sub. Now let's talk about this halftime sub for a second, because Conrad Wallem comes in 45 minutes for Alfredo Morales, and what we found out after the game is that Conrad Wallem had been and is kind of nursing a calf injury. David Critchley didn't characterize it as an injury. I think he said the word strain, but that's why he didn't start. So the answer that you're probably wondering, or may have been wondering, when it comes to Alfredo Morales and Akil Watts in the midfield, is that Conrad Wallem was nursing a bit of an injury, and they thought he could go 45 minutes. Turns out he couldn't. And I think the broadcast catches it, but if you look back to around 63, right before he subs out, you'll see he makes a motion over to the bench, over to the staff, some kind of signal with his hands. And then right after that sequence ends, he goes down and he's subbed. So clearly he felt a little tightness. Clearly he felt something that required him to come out after 21 minutes of being in the game. But he enters at 45. And it wasn't a minute and a half later that Claus scored his second goal. So whatever it was that Critchley talked to this team at halftime, Claus clearly responded to.
Yeah, Claus pretty quickly on the second half scored a minute 2 of the second half. Celio with the great, after St. Louis recovered a ball, Celio saw Claus running and sent the ball in Klaus's direction, and he had already beaten LA Galaxy's last man, and he mentioned it during the press conference that his first touch wasn't very good, and he thought he got himself in trouble. But once he was in the box, the first chance he had to shoot, he went for it and ended up being goal number 2 for St. Louis. But it's one of those things when you have a striker on a streak, anything they hit will go in, and this was the second time for Claus after a great pass from Celio.
And what an angle to the shot. I mean, he had no angle on that. He was feeling the vibes clearly. And he said post-game, once you score a goal, then second and third, they might come because you're feeling that striker's confidence we've talked about so many times. And when he had a good ball placed from Celio, he was in transition, kept his movement. I mean, he was put in a good position. So this is Celio Pompeu able to extend the ball, able to extend the play with his passing, not just with the ball at his feet in 1v1 trying to beat a defender. This is that clear over-the-top passing that he helped St. Louis find success with. And all credit to Claus on that finish, because this is the exact opposite of so many things that we've seen over the past few months, where we've had 0.3, 0.4 XG individual shots, really good opportunities, whether it's Claus, Seti, Fetcher, anyone. And Claus is able to finish this. I mean, if this isn't an indication that he's feeling the confidence, that he's feeling the support, and he feels like he's being put in a good position, and he's expecting things, because that was another point that David Critchley made post-game, is that, or Claus made post-game rather, is that when they talked this week, Critchley said your confidence, it's at about a 50%, and we need to get that up to 100%. But not just that, you're used to no chances coming your way. In the first 15 games, Claus wasn't used to any chances, and Critchley told him this apparently during the week, that you're going to get chances now. Referencing his miss in Portland, you have to be ready for these chances now. We're going to put you in these positions to receive these balls. And this is what happened in the second goal, I feel. The first goal was a great goal, don't get me wrong. But when you're talking about being ready for a ball, being ready for a pass, that second goal is it, where you're just ready for whatever Saleo has to give you. You're in stride. You're not skipping a beat. You're able to gather the ball and continue on. And no matter what position you're in, Claus knows he's the only man there. He knows it's him or nothing, and he's able to make it work.
Yeah, it was a great shot by Claus from a difficult position because of what he said, that maybe he didn't control it great when he got his first touch, but he was able to resolve. That's what you have to do as a striker. But it looked at that point, I was starting to think, oh, this may be the opportunity for a hat trick, something we had never seen at Energizer Park or in City's history. And obviously, a lot of things happened after that. LA Galaxy scored within 4 minutes, and then it looked like the game was getting away. But Claus had something different to say about that. So why don't we talk about that second goal from Galaxy 4 minutes later?
Do we have to?
Well,
because it was a class goal. I mean, the way it was finished, I think it was Marco Royce that had that little toe drag back heel pass. That was incredible. But I mean, it's the Brazilian U22 that finishes it off. I guess you could start with the fact that it was Thomas Totland that went down on the right side as, the first domino to fall, and then they were in transition, spread out. The back line was high, and Galaxy just found a way to break through the spacing.
Yeah, and it started from a ball to Kyle Hewer. He was in the middle towards midfield, and it was also a close ball. He had somebody guarding him, and he was able to get some space and pass it to Totland. I couldn't see if maybe it was a bad pass or Totland just couldn't control the ball, but he ended getting dispossessed by John Nelson, former City player, and he played it to Marco Royce, who also had that great play with the back heel, and then Nascimento, U22 player for LA Galaxy, ended up scoring his first goal in MLS. And Greg Bunny had been talking about him the last couple of games, saying that he had been getting more minutes, and last game he had an assist, and then today was his coming out party in MLS.
If there's nothing that shows you the value of a U22 and the potential that they have, it's this, where Nascimento hasn't been setting the world on fire so far, but getting acclimated. Now he's had the chance with Miguel Berry out in this game, and he made his presence known, not just with this goal, but with an assist earlier that we talked about. And the absolute class by Marco Royce for that back heel pass was absolutely silly. So St. Louis made a mistake, and David Critchley referred to the second goal as a mistake. He also referred to the third goal as a mistake. And so that was another egregious pass to me, where Nascimento had the goal at 51. You had some subs come in. You had Joey Zielinski and Cedric Teuchert come in for Thomas Totland and Simon Betcher. You had Conrad Wallem leave the game because of his injury, the calf injury that we talked about. So Jake Girdwood-Reich entered the game. And to his credit, I thought JGR had a good game. I think he's cementing himself as a player who can be relied on.
I agree.
I don't think there's any problems we've had. He hasn't had an extended run so often that we can feel comfortable and say, oh, he's obviously a good enough player to start. I think the quality is there. And on the concept of U22, Jake Girdwood-Reich is a U22 player for us. We signed him for $800,000 from Sydney FC, and he's now fully healthy. He's acclimated to the United States. The illness isn't an issue anymore. JGR is good to go, ready to go, and I wouldn't mind seeing more of JGR. I thought he held us in the game, and nothing he did in the back half of this game led to any of the goals that were scored. So we had that hydration break at 75, and then at 87, it was Gabriel Peck's brace, his second goal. And on this one, boy, you talk about a mirror of the second when you're talking about backline bad passes and individual mistakes. Jay Reid might get the flack for tripping over his own feet in space as he's trying to not just run to the ball, but then simultaneously pivot backwards to his left. So he's the left back, keep that in mind. And as Jay Reid goes to receive a pass, apparently, because Joey Zielinski had passed the ball halfway across the field in open space in our defensive end, Jay Reid runs to recover this, and realizing that he doesn't win the ball, doesn't get there first, he has to immediately try and pivot out of the way. So where Gabriel Peck, you could say Peck v. Reid, but that's not really telling the whole story. It's Jay Reid doing what he can to try and recover a loose ball at this point. And then he gets himself tangled up. He's trying to move one way. At the same time, he's trying to move another way, and he goes down. And so the optics of this look like Jay Reid went to face Gabriel Peck 1v1 and got twisted up. But I don't think that's fair at all to Jay Reid based on what had happened just prior, where he was on the field and how he was trying to get to the ball. Anyway, he goes down. At that point, it's Gabriel Peck v. Roman Berkey, and Roman Berkey is class, quality, no doubt, and has stopped 1v1, a lot of 1v1s before. This wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, this wasn't it. An unfortunate play for Reid, but again, it started from a very tight pass from Zielinski, and it was because he was also being pressured by a Galaxy player, and that's the risk when you try to play from the back, and you have and it's not like Galaxy is like a pressing team, but they chose their moments and were able to cash in twice today. Obviously, Zielinski thought maybe he could make the play and Reid was going to get there, but it was a very tight pass, and just the positioning from Reid ended up being unfortunate because he slipped, and then Gabriel Peck, all he had to do was just go to goal and beat Roman Berkey on the 1v1. At that point, Matt, I was very, very a little disappointed because obviously City lost the lead twice very quickly, and what looked like it was going to be a game that City was going to building and getting that confidence back. At that point, I thought LA Galaxy was going to get the 3 points.
I think a lot of people in the stadium had that fear. I'm sure a lot of people watching on the broadcast had that fear as well. I turned to my wife at the time and said, does it feel like this is a game that we could come back? Because it didn't feel like the momentum was there. But if there's, I would say, one single takeaway from this game as something to really be positive about going into the next 11 days off, or the next 10 days off before our 11th day match against Orlando, it's that this team now does know how to fight back. This team knows how to score a goal in the dying minutes to at least save a point. There's a lot that you can criticize about having gone down, the individual mistakes by Joey Zielinski or Kyle Hebert, both of which are backups, by the way. Like, let's not sell ourselves too short about the types of mistakes that were made here. They were made by backups who were playing because of injury and fitness. Zielinski has proven himself capable of being a backup right back. There's no question. He had a mistake. Kyle Hebert has more than proven himself to be a serviceable center back and I would say borderline ideal backup center back. He made a mistake. With the third goal, or with the first goal, I mean, you credit LA Galaxy, but that kind of speaks to another facet that you get your ideal 11 out there. You improve the depth a little bit. You get some of the players who are injured back. You're not needing to necessarily rely on as many backups as often as you are. You're not giving them opportunities for these kinds of mistakes. Not saying that it's just because they were backups they made mistakes, but look at the top quality of St. Louis City SC, and it's not the players that made those mistakes. Now, the 90+4 goal by Claus. I could talk about this for days. I wish I could take the mental picture that I took of that goal and post it to the world. Because I tell you, Santi, I asked a question in the post-game press conference because of what I saw. And what I saw was Roman Berkey going to take a free kick at 90+4.
Mm-hmm.
Timo Baumgartel was, I would say, 15 yards in front of Roman Berkey. Basically an outlet in case Berkey wanted to pass it up to him, and then they move the ball out of the back. Roman Berkey was as adamant as I have ever seen any player on the field, Roman Berkey included, in telling Timo Baumgartel to go. Get as high as you can go. Get in the box. He might have even pointed a specific location in the box. Bottom line is, Roman Berkey specifically told Timo Baumgartel to get up in the box, ready for a long kick from distance, a good distribution from Berkey. What Berkey did next can only be described by me as legendary. Maybe the greatest single play in St. Louis City SC history because of that thing that he did in telling Timo Baumgartel to move up. He sends a dime and hits Timo Baumgartel right in his head. Timo Baumgartel gets the header, gets it over to Claus, and Claus scores the goal. What do you make of this entire sequence? Is Roman Berkey and his actions, and not just in telling Timo Baumgartel to move up, but his actions with the ball? Do you think I'm overselling this? Because that, to me, that entire sequence is a calling your shot type of a thing.
Yeah, no, you're not. And I have to be honest, I missed when Berkey had that conversation with Timo Baumgartner and he went up to the box. But I know, I think the first year we talk about a lot about Roman Berkey's distribution and when he was going to have an assist. And that moment finally came today, if I'm not mistaken.
Roman Berkey's first career assist. Thank you, MLS, for the secondary assist stat.
Hey, it's still an assist.
It's still an assist. A holdover from the OG MLS days where they want to Americanize the sport a little bit. They like the hockey assist concept. Maybe they want to pad the stats a little bit more, but you look back in the record books and 20 years from now, Roman Berkey's going to be telling his kids, hey, I remember that assist that I got? I was a keeper and I had an assist, talking about some of the other players who couldn't get assists in the field.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And not only the dime he put out there, but then Timo Baumgartel, the way he basically passed it to Claus, and Claus did his thing again from a difficult angle, and where he put it on Galaxy's goal. Like, that was amazing.
The only way Claus scores this goal is because he's feeling it. The confidence, the momentum that he's feeling, the knowing that if he gets the ball, he can score and he will score. That's the only reason he scored it. I don't think Claus under Olaf Melberg scores this goal. If you assume they get the ball into this space to be able to have that shot, I don't think that Claus scores this goal. I think the confidence that he's gained under David Critchley and the confidence that he gained from scoring these two goals, especially, led directly to that ability. I think it was 0.05 XG, massively low percent shot opportunity. This isn't a goal that Claus has scored in every single aspect of his St. Louis City career. He's had his ups and downs, and under Olaf Melberg, there were lots of downs. He doesn't score this goal in that area of his career, as far as I'm concerned. It's the fact that he's gained this confidence. He finished multiple times early in this game, and he felt it. This was I talked about Roman Berkey calling his shot. This is Claus just feeling it. He's like in NBA Jam when you're on fire, and he cannot miss. That's what led to this, and thankfully it did, because throughout this whole game, being up, tying, going down, we salvage a point, and this weirdly feels like a happy point. A 1 point at home against the LA Galaxy. I know it shouldn't feel like a happy point, but especially post-game with the Claus hat trick, first hat trick in St. Louis City SC history, it has enough ingredients to it, I think, is what the thing is. It has enough ingredients between Berkey, between the attack, between the players discussing their supportiveness for Critchley and their excitement about the kind of soccer they're playing, Klaus's hat trick, the hat trick coming from behind in second half stoppage, something that City has really never done before in 2025. All of these ingredients, the way it played out, is the only reason that I can be happy about this 1 point going into the break. Now, that happiness will probably fade at some point when I look at the standings and I see we just gave up 2 points to a team that is in wooden spoon position, that is has half as many points as us in the table. At least coming into the game, they did, and we should have won. We had enough opportunities to win.
Yeah, 1 point is better than nothing, but this is one of the games that when you look at the standings and the the portion of the season where you or the season where you're at and the need to get points, you're gonna think back and say, "Oh, we should have beaten the Galaxy." Yeah, the team rescued a point, continued their undefeated streak against LA Galaxy, 6 games, and Galaxy hasn't been able to get 3 points yet. But you mentioned when I look at the table, I thought you were gonna go there instead of talking about Galaxy being last. But yeah, City, yeah, collected a point, but it's gonna have a lot of work to do after the break if it wants to make the playoffs. Basically, has to win at least 8 games out of the next 16.
You brought the playoffs into it. Bummer. One of the other positive things in this game is David Critchley had mentioned multiple times the goals of the team, and we talked about this last week. We talked about this a couple days ago, starting to blend together. The field tilt. Field tilt is a goal of David Critchley's to improve as a means to generate more chances, putting his team in better positions to score goals. And the field tilt has to do with the amount of time that you spend in the final third of your opposition. Do you spend more time? Do they? And that's it's not overall possession. Possession impacts it, but play in the final third. And in this game, more often, more of this, most of the stats back up a fairly even, if not skewing towards St. Louis in the final third. So it passes into the final third. So the balls that start out and then get into the final third, the Galaxy won that 45-28. But in passes in the final third, St. Louis won that 117-103. Fairly close, but St. Louis still had a 14 pass advantage on once you get the ball into the final third, how many passes are you making inside that final third? And then St. Louis had more passes into the opposition box, 14-10. I think this is a better Galaxy team than their record indicates. And so this is something that you could also take heart in. The fact that it's tangible proof that David Critchley is getting a little bit more each game out of what he wants from this team than what he's seen before. And this isn't a team I think that would have been able to have 117 passes inside the final third under Olaf Melberg over maybe 4 or 5 games. So there's a lot within the game, in the game state, the game flow that I think speaks to success under David Critchley.
Yeah, and I think that passes into the final third. I think that 28 may be the highest for the season. But yeah, you can see the change. It's just a few things to correct. But you mentioned, yeah, this team doesn't give up. Under David Critchley, got 3 points against San Jose in a stoppage time. Obviously, last week again in a stoppage time ended up losing the game against Portland Timbers, and today again in a stoppage time rescued a point. So yeah, it's a team that doesn't give up, and it looks like it's gonna keep us under the edge of our seats for the whole 90 plus minutes. But it's good to see what the team is doing, the change on attitude, and when the players speak, you can see they have welcomed the change and they are trying to embrace it. And yeah, they understand they need a lot of results, but they will continue trying to fight and trying to get those results until the math says, okay, you made a good effort, but may not be enough. But yeah, there is still 16 games to go, and if the team continues approaching the games this way, it may get all the points that it needs to make the playoffs.
Is there any question that Claus was the man of the match of this game?
No.
I mean, it's not often we get an exciting unanimous player of the game, and Claus was that by far, with obvious credit going to different players with assists like Timo Baumgartel, Marcel Hartl, Celio Pompeu, and our own goalkeeping captain, Roman Berkey. So there's a lot of kudos to go around when it comes to the attacking prowess. I think Critchley mentioned, 6 goals in the last 3 games, which from a St. Louis City team that has really struggled with goal scoring over the entire season.
Before that, the team had scored 8 goals.
That's yeah, abysmal.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to the turn that David Critchley's had on this team. So any other points that you want to make sure we cover before we look at the standings and kind of get folks set for this little bit of a break?
No, I think we cover everything about the game. I don't know if you wanted to look at results from around the league.
Yeah. So one of the things about recording this at now it's just after 8 o'clock Central Time on Saturday as we're recording this. A lot of games are still in progress, and so we look at the live table with so many games in progress. St. Louis is. It looks like St. Louis is going to, at the very best, be tied for 13th with Real Salt Lake, they both have 15 points in. St. Louis has 18 games. Real Salt Lake has 17 right now. So at the very best, we'll be tied for 13th. But more than likely, by the time we play Orlando next, we'll be in 14th place still. 15 points. And at this moment, we are 7 points off with half a season left. There's a lot to play for, and we are very far from out of it. Yeah, you could talk about how many points per game you need to, and we will, and we'll get to that eventually. But for now, things aren't out of reach, and things are trending in the direction that once we resume play against Orlando in a week and a half, a good Orlando team, because this Orlando team is in playoff position. They're in 8th place in the East. Not a great team by any means, but potentially a winnable match. And then Houston after that, and Houston is outside the playoff picture in the West. So a couple winnable games when we come back. The players are going to get some time to rest and recharge. I think they have the next 5 days off, if we heard David Critchley correct. The team might actually have their first training, if I'm thinking through the schedule correctly, on the fan day on next Friday, where fans are invited to the stadium to see training, which should be a fun opportunity for everybody. It's been a great thing the City SC has been able to put on for the past couple of years. We look forward to that. The updates during the week this week, probably pretty sparse. We're not going to expect a midweek show just because the team will be off. They have 5 days off. The players are going to disperse, have time with their friends and family. The Club World Cup is ongoing, so there's plenty of soccer to watch and look at. What we will be is we'll be back later this week, and I'm thinking we might want to do a first half of the season so far type discussion. So look forward to that or whatever we come up with. Santi, any final words before we get out of here?
Yeah, the only thing I mentioned, and you mentioned it too, like a lot of ground to make. But if you get a couple of wins in a row, like you start to close that gap. And the other thing I wanted to mention, I said the team had scored 8 goals. I was looking at it wrong. Had scored 11 goals before David Critchley. Now has 17 goals total. But still, it's a great output. We had talked a lot about the lack of scoring. And the team also missed some clear chances under Olaf Melberg, but it wasn't creating enough chances. And we have seen that in the last few games.
So we had 11 goals scored in 15 games and 14 games.
No, 15.
11 goals scored in 15 games, 6 goals scored in 3 games. That's something to hang your hat on and be excited about going into the back half of this season. On top of Claus being much more confident than potentially we have ever seen him. We have Roman Berkey feeling the most confident he's been in this system in a while. Players are waxing poetic about the coach and about the trend that this team is on. The past few games are reason to be excited about going into this break. I think I can't reiterate that enough, in my opinion. There is plenty to work on, that's for sure, and the team will get to that as they return at the end of this week. But I think there's a lot of positives to take away that we're going to take away as we have this break too. So thank you for joining us on Flyover Footy. This fallout, looking at a 3-3 draw from the LA Galaxy from this mid to late afternoon Saturday matchup. If you haven't already been following us on social media or our podcast or YouTube, please do tell your friends, have people like and subscribe, because that all really helps us so much. We really much appreciate it. If you're inclined to, especially during this break, and you're at a computer, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That helps us out. Ideally, it's 5 stars, but we take constructive criticism too, just like the team we love to cover. So thank you so much for joining us. For Santiago Beltran, my name is Matt Baker on this edition of Flyover Footy's Fallout. We'll talk to you later.
Vamos City!
All right, if you're still with us, thank you. We really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your night. Thanks for dealing with all the technical issues. The Wi-Fi has been hit or miss all day, and God bless the team's technical crew for working on that. We love them, and it's a Herculean task, everything they do. So we appreciate you for joining us. Stick with us throughout this week. We'll be back later this week for another show. during this break the city has. And we look forward to the Friday fan event too, right? That's gonna be really fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be really fun.
If you see either of us, I would up with Flyover Footy stickers.
There you go.
So if you're interested, if that's your jam, we would love to hand them out. Thank you so much for joining us on this Saturday, and we'll talk to you later.
Bye, guys. All right.
Good deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we were